Hello, everyone, and welcome to day 5, week 3 of our journey in exploring digital film technologies. As you know, this is the last week of post-production, and then cinematography will be taking over tomorrow. Tomorrow, what am I talking about? Next Monday. So, good news and bad news. We're going over to Premiere this week. I don't know if that's good news or bad news for you. Uh, if you've enjoyed the After Effects and there is anything else you want to learn in After Effects, please do, if it's within reason, post in the request thread that I posted last night, Sunday night. And we might dive back into it on Thursday just to cover if there is anything specific. We've had one very good request so far from Tanner, but it's not realistic in terms of the time frame and difficulty of what it was. So I'm really sorry, Tanner, because I've loved your passion on this unit. Right, so in Premiere, guys, so it's fresh start. If you found After Effects really difficult, you're going to enjoy Premiere a lot either way, because After Effects was very technical, and it was good technical because it was learning how to do stuff, but this is going to be primarily learning creative decision making in the sort of process of the film technology. So of course you can be shown how to do various things, but it's going to be serving a purpose. Okay, so we're going to start off. Lesson 1 is about just grading and LUTs. It's quite an easy one, and I'm going to give you a little gift with lots of LUTs in this folder, and I'll just talk you through it now. So let me just talk you through how this is all going to work. Okay, now actually I'm going to decide about lesson 3 for today, because in the old curriculum, if we were running at Ravensbourne, I would have done these two, lesson 2 and lesson 3 on different days. However, I'll see how today goes. I might just do all 3 in one day. Lesson 1 is going to be about grading, okay, and I'm going to give you this little present, okay. So this is a thing I got called Blockbuster LUTs, and what this is a collection of LUTs. Now, what is a LUT, you ask? It is called a lookup table, okay. Now, this is something that you apply to footage when you bring it into your editing package, and what you want to do with a LUT is it will apply a certain look or a feel to camera footage. Now, of course, most LUTs will just be just sort of take it from being sort of log format, in which when it's quite like washed out, to being correctly saturated and stuff. However, the LUTs that I have here in this folder that I got hold of from a DP actually go beyond that, and they apply a creative look to it. And many of them need to be tweaked. Let me just show you what this is. Okay, so it's called Blockbuster LUTs, and it has a variety of camera settings, okay? So I'll just show you. So it's got Alexa, Blackmagic, Bonus, Canon DSLR, Panasonic, Rec 709, Red Gamma 4, and Red Log Film. So all of these are, of course, different colour spaces, and depending on what camera you've got, hopefully it will fall into one of these categories. And what they do, let me just show you some before and afters. So this is sort of the Cave Dwellers LUT. So at the bottom you see is sort of our log or raw footage, which is sort of very washed out, quite desaturated. And then when you apply the LUT to it, that's what it looks like on top. Okay, so it's sort of like Cave Dwellers, sort of like I guess it looks a little bit like a sci-fi sort of LUT. Next one down is Cinema, just to make something look a little bit more cinematic. Again, bottom and top, you see the comparison. Hobocop, okay. So again, this is quite a sci-fi one in which the like sort of blues and the teals are exaggerated a little bit. Man of Teal, which of course is a greater extent of that, where the oranges and teals are exaggerated more. Monsters and Robots, okay. So that's from Pacific Rim. This is a post-apocalyptic LUT, and oh no, okay, so that's the main cover. The Great War, this is sort of like a war, World War II, sort of quite grim LUT. Halfling, you know, Lord of the Rings, nice. The Wes look, okay, so sort of Wes Anderson style LUT, and Vintage Vibrance. Okay, so what it is, in each of these files is a specific camera color space, and you see that each one of them has those. How many is it? Is it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10? So each one of them has 10 LUTs in total. Okay, so feel free to grab these and to use them however you wish. Okay, right. So I'm going to give you this folder, and I'm going to give you an S-Log2 LUT as well. Actually, sorry, no, I'm going to delete that. That's not needed. Because we're going to be working with some footage here, and the DP that shot this, and I can't remember what he shot it on. I think it was an FS7. I think, yeah, actually it was a Sony FS7. And so he's given me, because FS7 shoots an S-Log, so he's given me an S-Log LUT to work with the footage. Okay, so that's going to be lesson 1, and then lesson 2 is where we get really creative. Okay, we're going to be creative in all of these, because I'll show you the colour grading challenge in a second for lesson 1. But for lesson 2, I'm going to be giving you some of my Afghan footage. Now, this Afghan footage has been cleared. This was given away to international media as a B-roll, so there's nothing like sensitive here. This is approved, so I'm able to give it to you. But what it is, it's a time, and I'll explain to you during the lesson, but you're going to be editing this into a story, and there's some quite exciting stuff there. Yeah, so I'm going to give you these 2 bits of footage. And now the way that both this documentary lesson is going to work and the animation lesson 3, guys, is we're going to do one together, and then you go away and do a slightly more substantial one. Okay, so this is going to be far. I know the After Effects stuff has been right. Do this, do that. Boom, you got a finished product. This is going to be okay. Here's how you do this and that and that. Now go away and do it yourself and come up with something awesome. Okay, so hopefully there's a little bit more creativity this week because you can go away and do stuff. Anyway, that's enough of me talking about it. Let's actually do some stuff. So if you can open up Adobe Premiere, please, and go to your lesson 5 day 1 folder, or unzip it, and import these three MXFs into Premiere. Okay, so these are shots directly taken from the memory card of an FS7, and I'll just show you what it is. It's just some random stuff we did for a client a year or so ago. Okay, so now notice, guys, do you see that this footage is very sort of washed out? Okay, we've got some bits that are perhaps slightly overexposed. We got some, and you see this shot really falls into my my pet hate of yellow interior light and blue exterior light mixing in the same frame. And because this guy's got a slightly darker skin tone, this shot has not been balanced for his skin tone. It's not good. Then we got sort of a general, and I think the sort of exposure and stuff is quite nice in this shot. Another one there, and another one here. Okay, so we've got a variety of shots and color temperatures. Now, what I'm going to show you how to do is firstly how to apply a sort of LUT to this scene, and how to get things working, and then how to try and get these shots to match. Now, your assignment, if you like, for today, in terms of what you post underneath the lesson, is going to be these shots all stuck together. And you, by all means, I'm not sure what the entire running length is of these. It's not too long at all, actually. But stick them all together, and you've got to try and get them all matching. Okay, that is the intention of today's lesson, because we've got some very good colorists in the year, but I think all of us could probably do with a bit of practice, bit of polish, just getting used to really making stuff work. And I'll show you some of the tools we can use for that. So let's get started. Let's just work with shot 1.mxf for now. So if your layout doesn't look like mine, just go to workspaces, make sure it's on editing here, you see that, and then go to reset to save layout. Okay, now we're going to, because you'll notice one of my things disappeared there, we're going to then actually show Lumetri color as well, so please click that, it's in your window menu, and we're going to show Lumetri scopes as well, please. Okay, so enable both of these, and Lumetri scopes will just appear here, but that's fine. Okay, right, so what we're going to do, and actually, guys, with Lumetri scopes, with this tab, if you could just grab the word Lumetri scopes and just sort of move it here, so then it's to the side, and then of course if your window is massively stretched out like mine is, just stretch it back a little bit, because of course we want to see our video window, but we want to see the Lumetri scopes as well. Okay, now to navigate sort of over here, just you see this arrow. This shows you all the sort of tabs open, so just make sure your source is on shot 1 for now. Okay, so anyway, let's grab shot1.mxf and drop it in the timeline, and this will automatically, you notice, create a new sequence, which is exactly the same frame rate. Obviously, this was a 1080p and 25 frames a second progressive. So it creates a sequence exactly the same settings. Let's rename it just so we don't get confused. So over here, just click on it or click on it and press enter, and just call this grading sequence. Right. Now, before we apply the correct LUT, the S-log that the DP who shot this gave to me, let me just show you how you would go about importing some of those blockbuster ones. Now, they're a bit hit and miss, I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes, and you will probably see now, when you import it in, you get all sorts of dramas, okay? Now, I'll also say, because this footage is S-log, okay, notice that in these blockbuster LUTs here, okay, there is not an S-log file, okay? Log is probably, possibly, we'll try adding some of them, but don't expect it to look amazing if it's not the one built for your camera. Of course, we can adjust it and stuff, but let's just let me just run through and show you. So what you do, have your footage selected. So as I say, the issue we've got here, right, is that it is not correctly the black levels you see are actually grey, okay? Look at the shadows, and of course it's quite desaturated. So what you want to do is, in your basic correction tab up here, go to Input LUT. Okay, so this is where you apply your LUT. Now, it has got a couple of defaults, but you can imagine that, let me just choose one, for example. So Phantom 709, you see that makes it lighter. That one, I mean, okay, the Alexa V3, it's certainly better than before. A mirror default log, etc. So we see you've got some sort of going on here, which you may or may not want to use, but of course they are not built for FS7 footage here, so it's very hit and miss. So anyway, click Browse. And what you want to do is locate your LUTs, okay? So locate your Day 5 Lesson 1 folder. Now, when we do it properly in a second, we're going to apply this one, okay? But I'll just show you. Let's try just a normal log one, and let's go for Man of Teal. Why not? Okay, so it has sorted out the black and white level. I mean, I'd say the black levels are probably a little bit... They're not crushed, at least. So that has applied a sort of, and you could say I guess it's sort of cinematic. Now, key thing, actually, we'll come to vector scopes in a second. I'll just show you again. So go back to your browse and let's choose another one. So let's go for like Halfling. Okay, so you see that in this situation, it is way too blue. Okay, so if you're not applying LUTs that are not appropriate, that are not built for the camera, it's not going to be perfect. However, it could be that you apply them and then you actually work on them to fix them because you're happy with the thing. Let's just do another quick one. Let's do Rec 709. Again, this probably won't work, but do Great Wall. Let's do let's do a post-apocalyptic because that's what London feels like now. Okay, so press OK. Yeah, so you see, it's trying to do it. Okay, so the blacks again aren't crushed. It certainly has applied this sort of like quite bleak look to it. It's not perfect, but you could work with it. Okay, so hopefully with these pre-made LUTs, ironically, while the one example that I do have of FS7 footage is not covered by this footage, a lot of cameras are covered. So you know, Alexa, Blackmagic, Canons, Panasonics, Reds, etc. So yeah, feel free, take them, use them, and I hope that they are useful to you at some stage, even if it's just for this lesson to show you some things. Anyway, let's do it properly now, because we've and generally, guys, if you are editing and you're working with a DP, do ask them for that, because many DPs do carry around LUTs for their own camera because they love to do their own little speed grades in their in Premiere on their laptops or whatever, just to make themselves feel better about life. So do ask them for their LUTs if they've got them, because it'll make your life a lot easier. So go to Input LUT, click Browse, and let's locate, go back to your LUTs like root folder, and slog2, which is again the thing the DP gave me, and click OK. And now you see it is sort of correct. Now, we've got a few issues with this, and this is where we're going to look over at Lumetri scopes. Okay, so this is where you look at your scopes window. Now, graphs, nobody likes graphs. They're scary, but they're also extremely useful. Now, I know we did briefly cover this in the first term, but let me just run you through again what we've got going on here. So 0, oh, and actually, sorry, let's make sure you can see what I can see. So just right click anywhere in Lumetri scopes and just make sure vector scope HLS is ticked and waveform RGB is ticked. Okay, let's just look at waveform RGB for now. So I'm going to untick vector scope HLS. Okay, so this is representing our colours. Now remember RGB values, which is red, green and blue, which is what sort of that's representing the pixels in a screen, and that's how video works. Red, green, blue pixels that all combine together to form colours. They are either between 0 and 255. Okay, 0 being black and 255 being white. Now, do you notice that we have not got anything really except maybe that tiny bit there, which is purely black in this frame? Okay, everything is hovering sort of around the between the 0 to 26 mark. So all the shadows in the frame, sort of like under the van and his the sort of shadow of his t-shirt there, are around this area. Okay, now that's actually quite good, and the reason that's good is because if it is if you get to a point where the blacks have flatlined, okay, let me just give a silly example. If I grab the shadows over here and drag them down like that, we still haven't lost information yet. Okay, I'll be very silly. I'll just grab the exposure and drag it down like that, and then drag the shadows down as well. So notice now we're sort of crushing everything down here, and anything that goes beyond the 0 marker is sort of lost information. Okay, it's like it's and now the worst thing that would happen, guys, if you bring in footage and it's like that, you've lost information, you can't really get it back. Let me give you a case in point. You see up here in the sky, we've got essentially pure white going on. Now, how do I know this? Because up here, and the graph will always generally correspond to the image. So notice, you know, if we start here and go here, this is about 2/3 of the way through the image, and you see about 2/3 of the way through the graph here, we've got an area where we've got image the white value going up and sort of clipping out here. Okay, now this means that we have lost information up here, so there is no way that we can get this sky back really, because if we were to just turn the highlights down and turn the whites down, notice that we don't suddenly start to see clouds or anything. It just gets grayer. Okay, we've lost information there. So you want to try and be careful when you're shooting, of course, guys, to make sure that nothing is clipping out of these values, either in a black value or the white value, because you've lost information. Okay, but generally, I mean, it's okay. There's information lost up there, and I think he was trying to get as much white in as possible, because we've obviously got a white van here. But I think the shot does feel slightly underexposed, particularly considering that he's a subject and he is pretty dark here. Okay, so it's very tricky when you're shooting in daylight to try and expose for both, but you've got to try and do it if possible. I would have put an ND filter on and maybe adjusted the exposure from that. Anyway, we've got our shot in place. Okay, so if we could just drag shots 2 to 6 in place. Now, I'm not going to be doing all of these. I'm just going to do a couple, and then it's up to you to try and get them to match. Okay, so if you could just apply the same LUT to all of them. Okay, and obviously they're all quite different because we've got different temperatures, and I mean, oh, look at that. You know, the Coldplay song, it was all yellow. That's really how I'm feeling right now with that shot. And this one as well. That one with the guy with the blue jumper is probably the best, like, sort of naturally shot, because it looks like pretty good. Okay, so we've got a variety of shots of various issues. Okay, so I'm going to take shot. You see shot 2 here. Let's actually work with. I'm going to do 2 as an example. Okay, and then I'm going to leave you guys to do the rest. So let's work on shot 1 and shot 3. Okay, so just move them around. So it goes shot 1, shot 3, then 2, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, right. So what we want to do on our color correction tab is firstly work out our white balance. Okay, so look at our white balance now. Is this balanced correctly? I would say generally yes. Now, just on your lumetri scopes back here, sorry, if you go back to and tick vector scope HLS just so we can see that. Now, of course, this is our color value. Okay, and notice, and it's very sort of tricky to see, but we sort of got a red section, then magenta, purple, blue, cyan, green, yellow, orange. So this is telling me whenever pixels are like shooting to the edge, it shows me that we have got quite a heavy sway in these areas. Now, if pixels ever go to the edge and they're sort of all cut off, for example, let me just boost the saturation so you can see. Okay, so that's with a boosted saturation. I'm just going to do the tint as well, just so you can see. You see, we've got loads of white stuff, white pixels around the edge now. Now this means that we're losing color information, similar to this sort of black and white values clipping. We're losing color information. It's so over the top. Okay, so you want to always make sure your colors are, where possible, within this circle. But notice what we've got going on here. This is detecting we've got a lot of very strong red, because you notice we're near the border of red. Now, of course, what does that correspond to? It corresponds to these bits of red. Okay. We've got a lot of very strong greeny yellow. I wonder what that is. Of course, it's sort of the bright areas of his high-vis jacket. And we've got some scattered blue, but not really much blown out blue. And of course, that corresponds to his t-shirt. There's a bit of green as well. Actually, because the colours of the trees here, because they are sort of greeny yellow, I think it's probably some of this area here. Okay, so notice that these will correspond to what you see in the image. Right, so we're going to try and get this looking as good as we can. Okay, I mean, a lot of it is pretty much done already, but in terms of the white balance, I mean, so let's say that you came in and the DP hadn't, and it was looking blue like this, okay, because they hadn't white balanced correctly, and outdoor light was blue. So what you would do, you would just grab the temperature and move it to the middle. Now, in terms of the, I mean, looking at the white of the van, I would say, so put it back to 0 again. Does it look slightly blue? I'd say this white does actually look very slightly blue. So I'm going to just adjust the temperature very slightly, just add it up to make it about 10. I think that looks more a balanced shot than before. Okay, now let's just look at the exposure. So we can sort of boost the exposure. Now notice though, I'm not saying we're going to do this, because notice as I'm doing this, notice what's happening in this graph. Now, of course, you see here we've lost a lot of information now. Okay, we've actually blown it out way too much. So I'm not recommending we do this particularly. Maybe put it to like exposure. Let us try maybe 0.5 just to make it a bit brighter than it was. Now contrast, I don't think we really need to adjust that. That would be sort of adjusting the white and black levels and the difference between the two. I mean, I would say actually the default image, and putting it back to 0 again, it is quite contrasty. I might just actually reduce the contrast. It depends what sort of look you're going for, of course, but I might go for about -20 on the contrast. Okay. And notice sort of the black levels here get raised a little bit. Then highlights and shadows, I mean, I'm not really going to adjust those. I'm certainly not going to make them brighter because we lose more information. I might actually, I'll tell you what, I might put the highlights like to 10 or something, just so it's slightly brighter, without anything more really clipping up here. Because I mean, we've lost that area anyway, so there's not much we can do about that. Shadows, again, you can turn them up or down if you want to. Okay, I'd say that again, maybe putting it to something like 10 might be a good idea. It completely depends what you're going for, but I'm just trying to make it look a bit more realistic and not as underlit as possibly it was before. Okay, then the whites and black levels. So remember, guys, from After Effects, you'll know whites and blacks levels. So this is sort of turning the white levels up and down. We don't want to do that. Leave the white levels as they are, because I think they're bright enough as is. And then the black levels, you can go for that, but obviously you don't really want to be, and you certainly don't want to be making it darker. So I would leave the white and black levels to be this just 0. Okay, in terms of saturation, I'd say that we're pushing the boundaries in terms of maybe having this look a little bit too saturated. We got some clipping going on, so I'm actually just gonna. Oh, and sorry, my saturation is turned up from earlier. I always think it's in the middle like the others, but it's not. It's if that's right, it should be the middle, but the value for saturation default is 100, not 0, like the ones up here. Okay, so then you can obviously go minus saturation, where you start losing color like that, or you can go plus. Okay, so the normal one, I mean, it's pretty saturated. We're very close to touching the limits of this, just because I don't like those really bright colors. I'm going to go for probably 85. Entirely up to you. You can keep it colourful if you want to, but I just prefer this image a lot more in terms of what I'm doing. So in my view now, I've corrected this image to be what I sort of want it to be. Okay. Now, before I then start actually doing the creative part, I'm gonna then try and get this shot matching as much as possible. Okay, this is going to be difficult because the lighting is entirely different, skin tones are entirely different. It's going to be interesting, but let's see how we can do. Okay, so what we're going to do with this shot here, we're going to go up to Window and click on Reference Monitor. You see that? Reference Monitor. Now what this does, this creates a reference picture of whatever your playhead is currently on. Now this is very useful because you can sort of use it to refer to when you're then working on your next shot. Okay, right, so let's go to work on this shot. So obviously we've applied the LUT to it. Firstly, what do you notice the big issue to be? It is very, very both yellow and blue, because the yellow light's coming from this light source over here and the blue light is coming from what appears to be an open window over here. So it's a bit of a nightmare. It's a bit of a nightmare to get this working, but we're going to try and get it to work as best we can. So let's grab the temperature and just turn it down very, very slightly. Now notice that if we go too far, he starts looking like he's quite ill, because there's this sort of, it's hard for you to see, but there's this sort of like green type hue that comes into his skin almost, and it's really not lit well for anybody, and again, because this guy's got slightly darker skin, it's not good. Okay, there's very orangey and it's not looking good for him. So I'm turning down the temperature very slightly on this. Okay, now of course tint is something, if you noticed it getting very green, you could turn up the tint slightly to sort of counteract it like that. Okay, but use your discretion with how you do that. I'm going to have the tint up a bit because you see there is a lot of green going on, and you might think, oh, it looks yellow to me, but the green is there. Trust me, it is there. So I'm just putting the tint up to like very, very subtle, like 7.5 or something like that. Okay, so that's already looking a lot better. If I turn that off, oh, sorry, that turns off the input LUT as well. Yeah, it's a lot better compared to how it was before. Right, so let's just so we're going to look at our graph levels here. So we haven't got anywhere blown out. We've got some areas which are pretty dark. So the blue channel itself is near. I'll actually save your work as well, guys. Blue channel's near being clipped out, and I imagine that is this area down here. Okay, if you look at how that corresponds to the image. Okay, but generally, if I compare the if I go back to this shot, you see our black levels are sort of about, what is that like on this side? If I do it this side, it's about something about 3 and going to about 15. So if I was to go back here, we've got it, apart from obviously this very dark area here, we've got it about 3 and actually going slightly higher. You see those black levels. So what you could do is maybe just turn the blacks down very slightly, okay, to 0.5 like that, and then turn also the shadows, I'm going to push them down very slightly as well, just so I'm trying to get my black levels here, guys, to be similar to the black levels in there. Okay, so you see now, of course, I know the shape of the graph is completely different because it's something different in the image, but notice that the sort of bottom end of the footage is between about 3, if I'm looking at this side where it's just 0 to 100, just so I don't confuse you with all the numbers this side, but it starts about 3 and you see it's about 15 that it finishes. So I'm going to try and get the black levels about similar for that where there is shadow. Of course, up here, this part of the image, you see this bit corresponds to the roof. There are no shadows there, so I'm not trying to get those bits down to black. It's just the bits where there are shadows. But that looks about right to me in terms of black value. And actually, that under the colours are different. We'll fix that, but the black levels are about the same. Right. Let's turn down the saturation a bit as well. So I'm just going to put that down to about 85 again. So again, that's looking far better, but we've still got the sort of big issue with some of the yellow. Now, there's not a huge amount we can do right now because there is yellow light and blue light on him. I mean, if you compare that, and actually, guys, what I'm going to do, so I'm just going to zoom out, select all the shots in front of it, and move them up. I'm then going to click on this shot of this guy, do Command C to copy, Command V to paste, and put that one next to it. Okay, and then on this new one I've made, I'm actually going to turn off correction. Sorry, no, I'm going to just click reset, and just reset all of these values back to 0 and saturation to 100, because I want to keep the LUT the same just so you can compare it. So that's before, okay, and that's after. So you see, we have done a very good job at trying to save this shot. This shot looks a lot better. Okay, his skin tones are far less orange. He still looks slightly sickly because of the way that he's been lit, but it's a lot better. Again, you know, he's wearing a white t-shirt. They just did not make good decisions with this shot. But I think we've done a good job at trying to save this as much as possible. So guys, just, you know, look at these values, and these are the sort of things you want to be playing with if you ever end up in a situation where you're working with footage that is very yellow and it's got blue light shining as well. Okay, so we've got that one to match. Let me just do, because we're going to go into the creative tab in a second. Let's just do, I'll just delete our new shot 3. Let's just pick one more. Okay, it's from a different, so this is another interior shot of somebody with darker skin, so you can do that one. Okay, let's do, so this is from the same area. I'm going to leave this one as a challenge for you guys to do, because this is, again, is a very different with the black levels and stuff. Let's do the shot of this guy here, okay? Okay, so notice what we've got going on in this shot, okay? So we haven't really got any blown out areas. I think that might be his collar, the one that's sort of near the top of the white. But look, if you look at the sort of black levels, notice that the other ones are between 3 and 15. These are a lot brighter. So if we want this shot to match our sort of reference image down here, we're going to need to work on it a little bit to get it matching. Okay, so let's click on this, and we're going to, firstly, I don't think we need to do any temperature. I think the temperature is actually pretty perfect. Don't need to do any tints, don't think we need to do any exposure really. Let's grab these shadows and just turn them down a little bit like that. And then with the black levels again, you can sort of just reduce it very slightly. Obviously, we don't want anything clipping, but I'd say about there is looking good. So you see, we have got sort of and there aren't many shadows in this image compared to the first image, of course. But you notice our shadows here are about 3 to about 15. Okay, so it looks a lot better already. And then of course, let's drop the saturation down 25 if you want it to be a bit more miserable, like I've been doing. Okay, so now that's actually looking pretty good already. I think that's because this shot was done so well that actually we don't need to do much. So we just have them all together. Now, of course, these are all quite different shots, but let's just do a quick white comparison. So and again, it's very hard to use this as a meter because there are so many like really bright areas, but the white area is sort of around there as average. So yeah, again, the average is sort of about there and about there. Yeah, so the white average levels are fine. Okay, so we've got sort of the correction done. And remember, guys, when you're grading footage, you always do correction first. You correct the footage so any you get it looking consistent, and you make sure that any sort of white balance or saturation issues are resolved. Right, so now actually let's get a little bit creative. So just save your work. And let's and this is up to you, entirely up to you what you want to do with this. So you see they've got some preset looks here, okay, and you can choose one. Now just FYI, you can, although I don't entirely recommend doing this, you can actually grab one of our blockbuster LUTs and stick it in here as a look as well. As I say, the intention of a LUT is to interpret footage, so a LUT is not a look. Okay, .look files are usually good for this, but I'm just showing you can do it and then adjust it if you want to. So if we were to add the Wes Anderson look, for example, and click OK, it then adjusts some settings. But as I say, it sort of does more harm than good, I think, because notice our blacks are bottomed out, and then we got to go and do a lot of correction. So I don't recommend doing it. However, if you get lucky, then by all means go for it. But if you just look for like free .look files online, there'll be lots and lots there. Anyway, here are some actual proper looks built in. So if we were to go for SL Gold Orange, sort of adds that nice, and again it's quite a cinematic effect what it's done to it. I'll just turn it on and off so you can see. Okay, so that's our normal shot. That's it with the look applied. Matrix green, of course, very sort of matrixy, matrix blue. Matrix Mars. Okay, so pick a look that you want to go for. Okay, so whatever it is. Now you notice that if some of them are, you know, a little bit too much, you can turn down the intensity. of the look like that. Okay, I'm going to choose one I actually want to go for. So I quite liked... no, that was too blue. SR Gold Western. Why not? Let's go for SR Gold Western. Okay, so you can adjust the intensity to either be super intense. 100 again is the base value. You can add some things like faded film, although I don't really recommend doing that because you notice how it affects the black levels, so you don't really want to do that. You can sharpen the image, but again, I don't really recommend doing that unless it's very slightly out of focus. You want to try and fix it, but this won't fix it. It's probably not good to use sharpen. You can change the vibrance. And again, I don't recommend doing that. A lot of these adjustments here aren't particularly useful. What is useful, however, you can, of course, change the saturation here. And you can change the tint in the shadows. This is quite good. So if I wanted the shadows to sort of have a blue tint, I'd grab this crosshair and just move it down like that. And notice how the sort of dark areas are now taking sort of blue sort of tint. Now, of course, you never want to go to the edge here because it's way too much. And similarly, you can grab the highlights and add lights this to light areas. You can make them sort of a bit more yellow, for example. You see like that? Or a bit more green. Or a bit more magenta, etc. So I'm just going to do that. I'm just showing you how these things work. Now, let me just show you some other cool stuff you can do. So let's look at the curves. If you click on the curves, let's say that for whatever reason we wanted to take some of the red and red only out of this image. Now, what you can do is, and actually, do you know what, guys? I'm gonna demonstrate to you on the shot of this guy. Actually, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's before I show you specific things, let's just get all of these shots matching. So let's say that's our graded look, and we're happy with that. Okay, so again, that's our reference image, and we're all good to go. Right, so let's go on this guy. Let's go to creative, and sorry, what was it? It was SL Gold Western. Okay, so look, SL Gold Western. Now again, because the SL Gold Western makes it a lot more orange, and this image is already more orange, this is probably going to be too much, so we're going to have to turn it down a bit. Let's see. Okay, so let's have a look. So that is make it look very, very sort of orange again compared to that. So I see that the grade matches in a way. However, if you look at the Vectorscope HLS here, notice the sort of red and orange values are about that distance from the edge. However, then if we go to this shot, notice they start going a lot closer to the edge. So what we want to do, and actually this is actually a perfect shot for me to demonstrate what I was just about to say, so that I'm actually quite happy about that. Of course, you could just turn down the saturation itself to sort of match this way. Okay, so you'd want it to be the same sort of rough distance from, if you wanted the scene to look the same, of course. But however, let me show you the other way. So go to curves down here, okay? And what you want to do, you see that we're going to ignore these curves for now, just going to go onto this. So you see hue versus saturation, this curve here, okay? And of course you want to make sure this drop down arrow is down so you actually see these things. So this is how you can select a certain part of an image and either boost the color or take it out of it. For example, I'll just jump over to this one. Don't do this one for now, I'm just going to show you. So if I was to click on this one, right, and I want to really make the blue of his jumper and that door pop, I would sort of click the beginning and the end of the blue area that I want to boost. So let's say it's that, and then just move it up. You see his blues become a lot more colourful, or you could suck the blue out of it. So if I take the blue down like that, you see it's like he's got a grey jumper now. Okay, so this is how you could boost individual things. Let's say, I'm just going to undo both of those. Let's say I wanted to make the foliage like really pop and seem like a really luscious green. Okay, so you can sort of select the beginning and the end of the green areas. And actually, I've probably gone a bit too to the right there because a lot of foliage is actually really quite yellow-green. So I'm just going to move that over to get the yellow in as well. And then I'm just going to make that sort of pop. So notice the foliage behind him is a lot more colourful than it was. And if I was to take that out, I might need to actually grab a little bit more. Yeah, okay, that was really interesting. So that would really demonstrate my point there. A lot of this foliage was actually so yellow that I had to really go into the yellow section to take it out, because when I first did it, nothing was really happening. And notice that this bit of the bush here is still actually in. Why? Because it's yellow, it's sort of there. So if I was to grab even more yellow like that, and then to drag it down, notice that that yellow goes out as well now. So that is in a world that has no colour, no green in the plants. Of course, if I wanted to boost it, I would then just push these values up, and you see, wow, like they are really quite colourful now. And if you have a look at the color grading sequence, guys, in Lord of the Rings. When they're in the Shire, well, actually, in all of their scenes, they will boost specific colors. So when they're in the Shire, which is the Hobbit world, they actually boost the greens and the purples very, very subtly to create this like really nice, luscious, vibrant look. So this is a nice way, guys. I love this tool, and this is a way that you can, you know, make colors stand or pop. So I'm just going to undo all this, but hopefully on this image it just shows you. So going back to our shot of this dude. Now, of course, what we want to do, we want to reduce some of the oranges and yellows in this, because with this sort of this look that we've applied to it, SL Gold Western, it's really not ideal, of course, for this sort of footage that has orange issues already. So let's drop a point in. So you do this with me now, sort of right here, just as the green meets the yellow. And we're going to just actually come round, because remember this goes around here and then it loops back again. So we can go around here and drop it about the end of the red. And then just go down here and just reduce this a little bit. Now, of course, we don't want to reduce it too much to the point where, because notice this is it in its default form, where these things are actually, with the orange value, sort of almost, well, some of it is actually touching the screen, it's too much. But as soon as we start to suck it down, notice this thing shrinks like massively, so quickly. You see that already, okay? But actually, comparing that and that is actually quite similar, quite consistent in terms of the grade. Okay. Now I know some orange values on this are near the edge, but actually, if you look at the bulk of the sort of orange values, sort of about there, then if we compare it, it is a little bit less than this one, but I think because this shot is so yellow anyway, it's just not good. Now if I wanted to highlight some of the yellow individually, just click it there and just take out some of the yellow specifically. You could do that. Okay, now we've gone too far because you see we've created like monochrome look behind. Okay, so you be careful about how you do it, but something like that, taking some of the yellow out of it, and then you could allow some of the orange maybe to come back in, because that is of course the look we're going for. Okay, so yeah, they look fairly consistent, and then let's just go to the shot of this guy. Okay, so let's repeat the process. Creative look. Let's go for SL, or is it SL Gold Western? Okay, and already, because this shot was exposed and done so well, I mean, it's a very, very good shot. And you notice, guys, how the decisions that the DP makes can have such an effect on the grade. Okay, when a shot is balanced correctly, lit correctly, exposed correctly, then it's a real pleasure and it's a lot easier to work with. When the shot is underexposed like this one, or too yellow like this one, and you notice it does become a lot harder to work with. Okay, so let's say that we actually ironically do, because we're sort of going for our sort of yellow type effect, and again to bring up this thing, it's hue, saturation, curves, drop down. Actually, I'm going to take a bit of the blue out of the scene because it's popping out a bit too much compared to the blues that we see elsewhere. I mean, there's no blue in this shot, the blues we see elsewhere. So I'm just going to grab this and drag it down very slightly like that, and his before and his after. Okay, so you notice that the blue of his jumper is changing. So just again to help it sort of match the way the blue's looking in this shot, it's a lot better. Okay, right, so that's these things matching. Now maybe you can have a play with hue versus hue. So for example, if I was to do hue versus hue, this would be taking the yellow values and actually changing the hue of them. So watch what happens here. Okay, so this is making them green, and do you notice how vertically we've got a color bar here? You see this vertically. So if I was to grab this up here, this would take all the yellow values and actually turn them red or purple or blue, etc. So this is a way that you could adjust, and it's obviously quite tricky to get right, but you can adjust the actual like balance of a color. Hue versus luma. So if I was to grab the yellows here, I'll just show you. This is making them dark and lighter. Okay, so if I wanted all the yellows in the image to be lighter, I would just drag them up. Okay, so that's another tool you have. And then luma versus saturation. So if I was just to grab the sort of luma in the image, you see that you can sort of saturate different bits, and this is based on lightness. Okay, and then saturation versus saturation. I'm going to show you. Okay, again, this is choosing bits of the image to be saturated in and out. I'd recommend having a play with all of these, but the key thing is the top one, hue versus saturation. Okay, Now, in terms of the curves, let me just show you quickly the curves. This is, do you remember in After Effects when we did our color balance and we could sort of adjust the red shadows and the red highlights and stuff? So I'll just do it on this one. So if this is the actual like entire RGB itself. If I was to isolate the red channel, so I click on the red one here, and I was to create a few points like this, okay, and I wanted to, let's say I wanted to do something to the red highlights, okay, so the bright areas of frame that are red. This would be boosting red highlights and actually making highlights red, so you see that they've become red. This would be then going underneath the line would be removing red from the highlights. So notice the highlights now, the white areas are now blue, more blue, okay, because we're removing red from the image. Same for the shadows. If I was to boost it up here, I can actually boost the red shadows like that, okay, or I could remove red from the shadows to make it blue like that, okay. So it's just really useful to have. Then of course you can do that to the greens and the blues, or this is sort of like the master one. So let me just show you this. This would just be okay, so this is actually the lightness value itself, okay, the luma values. This is just boosting the shadows and removing, etc. Okay, I mean, to be honest, I actually quite like this boosted one. I think you can see more of the image and it looks less underexposed. So anyway, that's just how to work with footage, apply a LUT and get it to match. So if you guys could have a job, and honestly, we got some very good colorists in the year. I'm not a colorist by trade. I know like basic stuff like this to get fixed stuff, but I think there are some colorists in the year who are probably better than me. So have a go at getting all of these shots to look like they belong in the same product. Now, I know that obviously some of these shots are outdoors and some of them are yellow, and this one, I mean, you're going to have some luck with, you see that we've actually got a lot of very crushed dark areas here, okay, so you'll need to work with them and try and get them back and save them, okay, and there are lots of highlights as well which you see correspond to the lights in the ceiling. So good luck. This is a difficult one to do, but I want to see how you do it. So try and make it look like all 6 shots belong in the same video, okay. Obviously they will look all slightly different because, you know, this will always look different to an outdoor shot, but try and get it looking like it belongs in the same shot, and then post your work on Aula. Now guys, I will say with the editing exercises, particularly lessons 2 and 3 of our editing stuff, when the videos are like 4-5 minutes long, I of course can't watch and give feedback on all of them because if you do the maths, like 150, actually it's 180 in the year, but I think only about 150 are posting. 150 times 5 minutes. I would like to say I was really good at maths, but let me just show you. So 150 times 5 minutes divided by 60, so that'd be 12.5 hours of feedback video just for one lesson. So it's not really feasible to do that. So what I will do is pick a sample of people and just give general feedback, and I think it'd be good for all of you to watch that and to pick up any feedback, because a lot of the as you've seen from the other feedback I'm giving, a lot of the feedback's quite general, and if somebody's got an issue, that issue will probably be replicated by most other people. So yeah, it will be worth watching that. But have a go at doing these, guys. It'd be really good to see, and post it up on Aula once you are done. If you wanted to actually shorten these clips, so the entire thing is like 10 seconds long or something, so you could just go like, it's like shorten, and then, oh, my brother's calling, shorten them all, and then you then just put them together. It means you've got a slightly smaller file size. Of course, export as an MP3, please, guys, and then you're good to go. Cool. I'm going to take a quick break and then record the next lesson. Hope that was useful for you. Enjoy the LUTs, and let's see how you can improve your color grading. Cheers.